Welcome to Starseed Parenting. I'm Patti Feeney with Reshma Shah. And today we're very excited to talk about the evolution of food and its impact on health in the United States and globally. And Reshma, I'm very interested in this topic. It's so important and it's so important for our Starseed children and ourselves. So could you first tell us a little bit about why you're here, what your role is on the planet at this time of awakening?
Thank you, Patty. Thank you for having me. The reason why I am here right now, my sole purpose is to anchor lights. Being a star seed, we always are sent here for a mission and we sign up for the mission. So in this now moment, I witness myself as anchoring lights and holding space as we all are ascending in human incarnation. So that is why we are here talking.
And nutrition is so important. There's so much out there, misinformation, good information. It's very overwhelming.
Right. Patty, especially for star seeds, it affects us whatever we eat so specifically because of the chemistry of our body is different since we come from different star nations, right? So specifically for star seeds, it's a very different equation. So it's necessary to watch and observe how each child is reacting to each food material.
Yeah, I've shared with you, I have a child who's disabled, and I noticed that that there are certain foods that she's allergic to, and it's also with myself and other children, like things that were fine before now all of a sudden are not sitting well. So why? And I know this is not just me because I talk to other parents. What do you think about that? Why are there so many food allergies right now?
But the evolution of food has been such that it is artificially the GMO, and the artificial treatment for every heirloom seed has ruptured the entire, I would say, the agriculture and the entire food industry. Because it is not the way how organically, and I do not mean organically grown only, but the natural way of producing food has deteriorated and more processed or synthetic fillers have been used to create today's food. Like, say, for example, even if you go and buy the regular meat or if you go and buy any kind of regular produce, not necessarily that is authentically, purely cultivated. There is always Monsanto fears, or there is always artificial fillers in the animals' feed fears. And these are not fears I would consider, as they are more concerns about how we all are consuming so much of chemicals, especially in United States. There are a lot of food over here in United States which is completely banned in Europe and other parts of the world. Surprisingly, how this entire nation is consuming those kind of toxic supplements, I would call it, because they are added to food. Rather than that, I would say it is really surprising. To the relief of that, I just saw the video the other day of RFK Jr. for HH. He's come up with a big list of what he's banning in the current timeline, and he's taking away off the market, which is a big ray of hope for entire nation to understand that how we have been filled up with so much of toxicity. That's one of the reasons United States of America has the highest obese people. That's one of the reasons why United States of America has the highest sick people. They have some or the other disease going on when it comes to as they go to the seniors, not only because of the food, but also because of the toxins, what they put into our food, our air, water, beverages, and even the supplements, what is being given to us.
I know, if you look at pictures from the 70s or, early on, you don't see everyone looks fit and
much healthier, isn't it?
Kids are outside. If you look at a picture today, like they show the beach picture of the aerial, and then the aerial of today, it's very different. A lot of people are dealing with obesity. It's kind of almost accepted to.
Yes, unfortunately.
What you're saying really hits home because it seems like over the decades, something has definitely happened, especially in the United States. So what can we do? Like, what do you suggest?
We could be more conscious about how we consume our produce. And I do not mean only organic or sustainably grown produce. the whole intention of this revolution in food industry, as what I see it, is required is because that way, if we know what we are consuming, that way, if we know, because everything what we eat, Patty, that affects our physiology, our mindset, and our mind, spirit, mind, body, right? So everything that we eat also affects our thoughts and our actions and behaviors. Like children nowadays, they have so many packaged juices. That is that instead of giving fresh fruit juices squeezed at home only, because of the convenience. I understand that our lifestyles have changed, and I understand that we are more on the go kind of lifestyle now. However, we adults need to take a step back and see how that is affecting and detrimental for our children as well as us. Like as you just mentioned right now, the adults have taken it as a norm that, yeah, somebody could be having a blood pressure, somebody could be having a diabetes. And that's a norm thing to have for, unfortunately, for humans to have it. You know? And children are given food like colored cereals, artificial sweeteners, artificial grains, like everything has been supplemented, which is deteriorated quality instead of giving them more and more natural produce.
Market to children, or children are targeted almost.
Yes.
Artificial flavor colorings. And what does that do to the body of a child? You say that there's everything we ingest has a vibration. And if there's a lot of chemicals like dyes, what is the effect on our children?
It affects very adversely, Patty. Like most of the children who have consistent high amount of chemicals or high amount of artificial food or produces and packaged foods or colored foods, they have their neurotransmitter disorder. Like their brain works in a very different way than the one who eats natural produces. That is one of the major things. It also affects their GI tract, means their entire digestive system is very highly ruptured. Why? Because there is no fiber, there is no actual produce in what they are having. They have more of completely lower graded carbohydrates or completely lower graded foods which only are fillers, and I call them either plastic food or I call them either cardboard food, you know. So it's not actually giving any kind of nutrition to our children. So then they come up with behavioral issues like ADD, ADHD, or any kind of neurotransmitter like autism, for example, right? If children with autism, if they have consistently white bread, consistently colored food, then their nervous system gets short circuited. Their nervous system gets shocking trauma, and it affects their day-to-day life because they are anyway absconded from the normal society for that other reason. That's a totally different chapter altogether. We would have to really speak about that. But autistic children, in my opinion, are extremely awake. Their DNA is very awake. So they are way out there and they can connect intergalactically with outer star nations outside of outside of Earth universes. And if they are bombarded with this artificial food and the colors and packaged instead of the organic food, it contradicts their mindset. It contradicts their brain pattern. So that is an enormous amount of short circuiting and shocking trauma for their nervous system. And then we want to give them a lot of medication to subdue those symptoms instead of taking care of the cure. And the child is completely devastated. No? The child is completely devastated because the child is codependent on the parent for the food. And when they are given that kind of a food, it just wrecks their nervous system, subsequently their behavior, their existence. Whereas they are here basically for a bigger purpose of anchoring lights for the collective consciousness. It's a completely 180-degree flip what has the society been doing.
Wow. And I noticed too that a lot of kids with special needs or with autism, ADHD, are labeled picky eaters, which I think they're maybe innately trying to exclude the poor diet.
Yeah.
for food.
They're picky eaters because their higher self, their nervous system knows what is good for their body.
Okay.
And since childhood, if you have introduced fruits and vegetables and raw meat diet, that would really negate the entire medicinal world which has been bombarded onto them. Like, okay, that's a totally different conversation. In a nutshell, autistic children and special needs children are extremely awake. Their DNA is very awake. As we just spoke and we spoke about before in one of the other talks also, they're interconnected, they are connected with the interdimensional spheres. They understand light languages, they understand the frequencies way higher than what the cognition power can understand. So because they were not supposed to anchor light and slow down the process of humanity, that is the reason since childhood they have been given medications and suppressants so that they cannot stand up in their own power and anchor lights. On top of it, it was devastating. In 2020, I got to know in one of the special aid schools, and I would not go into details about that. Because of the shutdown, the children who cannot really speak, right, because it's a special aid school, they were given some of the oldest food which also had fungi. And when they would go home, they would not get to speak these details with the parents because they cannot communicate at that level. Not necessarily all can, right? But they were given the worst degraded food just because. Whereas they are the most ascended species on this earth in humanity. So it is a consistent effort to suppress the special aid children and not let them shine in their light because they are a threat to certain handful interests who are against humanity.
So their mission here is to anchor the light and to help us awaken.
To help us to ascend to our own true potential.
Okay.
Like we are 12 strands of DNA, say, and only 2 of us are functional, and this new mRNA is shutting off the 3rd strand. So the humans cannot ascend. It is a very controversial, they call some conspiracy theorist kind of, but it's not a theory. It's a medical field. Everybody can witness now that the children who have been vaccinated are more prone to disease rather than the one who are not, because their immune system is affected because of the aluminum and all the other toxicity present.
Okay. Present in vaccines in general, or
yes, specifically certain vaccines, but specifically in vaccination in general, because humans are born perfectly when they are born. And the reason why they are being vaccinated is so that they can be filled up with so much of toxins so that they cannot ascend with like their pineal gland or with their rest of the capability of their molecular vessel and their spiritual growth, because they are here in the pure form from different civilizations of star nations, right?
Right.
So that is what is happening.
Okay. And there are ways to cleanse and to help the vaccinated.
Yes, absolutely. If they would go on raw meat, especially the autistic children, if they would go on raw meat diet, their autism can be reversed. Yeah. If they would go on to chelated, for heavy metal, we do the chelated diet, cleanse, they can reverse their autistic matters. Like autism can be reversed. Okay. How and where, that is a degree of understanding of how far the child is, how old is, how much he or she is toxicated, but it is possible. And these all things have been kept hidden from us because certain handful ones did not want, and aggressive aliens who came here and invaded Earth, they did not want us humans to grow into our true and stand up for our own self and find our own true strength and power.
Wow.
So what right now we saw about the share what RFK Jr. is doing, it's the first step towards the revolution of growth, of how we are changing our entire food industry. So the targeted children, who is the future of ours, right? Humanity, they would not be so heavily toxicated or bombarded.
Yeah, I've seen some of the efforts. They're trying to change the diets of the school lunches. I see that it's a concerted effort to make everything healthier, which is very exciting for me. But can you go, I know it's a topic for an entire new podcast, but can you talk a little bit about the process of I've never heard of a raw meat diet for children and the chelated diet for the heavy metal cleanse.
See, the heavy metal cleanses is basically now in the new revived way. Heavy metals is something which is induced into our system, whether it is because of water, which is not clear, whether it is the processed food, or whether it is artificially created, any kind of airborne discords with our human body. If you in a holistic way, if you observe and if you induce candida and parasites in a measured way, not overwritten way, there is a special process. Once you add candida and parasites in certain measures, it will eat up the heavy metals from your body. So that can reverse the process. But that is an extreme state also. Otherwise, you can also do the heavy metal cleanse with fruits and juices and smoothies. And most of the people who are awake with how they eat and who they are conscious about how they eat, they all do some or the other kind of cleanses. Like we have done so many cleanses, right? When we were studying with when I was teaching with modalities, we have done cleanses, we have workshops, it's on my website. So different kind of cleanses are required as per the weather. Like the parasite cleanse is much more advisable to do in the fall season. And the fungus and mold is much advisable to do in the spring season. So because summer season is very flourishing for parasites as well. So when people have consumed that, it helps to clear your parasite cleanse in fall. And hibernation has created a lot of mold and fungus in the body in the wintertime. So when you do the spring season, it helps to do the cleansing for mold and fungus.
Now you mentioned that we're ingesting or inhaling, I guess, a lot of toxins in the air. Is that the reason for airborne allergies on the rise right now?
Wow. Airborne allergies have been widened up so much because of the lot of 5G rays in the air and all these towers what we have. So that is one of the reasons which humanity has suffered nowadays, specifically with lower immune system. Because the intention of 5G towers is mainly to lower your immune system, your capacity to work with your own body and your neurotransmitters discord, right? That's the main reason to get you out of your alignment with your own mind and body so that you cannot function with your highest truth. That is the main reason.
Wow. It's also interesting. I have so many questions, but I want to get back to nutrition. As far as inflammation is a huge problem right now. And I know it causes a lot of disease, or it is a lot of disease. And right now it's kind of normal to have diabetes and treat it, have cardiac, issues and treat it. Like, it's just like, okay, I have this now. Or, what do you think about that, about the inflammation and what's contributing to that, and why this is actually an epidemic, but it's seen as normal almost?
Wow, that is a very wide platform to discuss. But to start with, whatever we eat, it affects our mind, body, spirit, right? So every food what we eat affects our digestive system, which is our first brain, and this is our second brain. We have two brains, right? So everything that we eat goes into digestive system, and that creates chemicals which works with our gland and both the hemispheres of our brain. So the way how humans have been conditioned now is the humans have been conditioned to just fill up their stomach with food instead of nourishing them, right? People are waking up so fast now because everybody is coming to realize that this is not the way to live. This is not the way to treat your body and respect your body. So everybody is changing it. So the major things that are changing right now is the oil that we use to cook food. Yeah. The seed oils have been introduced into our body because of the mindset, like canola, palm, palmolin, and so forth. Now, these oils are really detrimental for our digestive systems. It's the same situation. It ruptures our neurotransmitters, it ruptures our mindset, and it ruptures our digestive system, and it ruptures our entire overall health. That's why heart diseases have increased. That's why diabetes has increased, and so forth. Like, if we go further down into it. So what seed oil does is when they extract the seed out seed oil, right? They use the most lowest kind of seeds, not the heirloom and the best organic or some. And they use the lowest kind of seeds which are not openly pollinated. It means heirlooms are something that are open pollinated. So it is freely produced, not produced out of a farm in artificial ways, right? So those seeds are used for creating their oil, and that is not good for our digestive system. That is the main thing. So the optional that people have started waking up so much is to recognize that olive oil is good. To substitute, like instead of having seed oil, if we have the natural oil, like olive oil, if we have avocado oil, if we have raw butter, with the in dairy form, if you're having pure raw butter where there is no chemicals no chemical used for the growth of the cattle, then that raw butter is very good for your body. Our ancestors in the Western community, they used to use lard and they used to use tallow. I think that is what they used to use, but in a very sparingly way, not the way how people are using it right now and they become obese, right? So it's some kind of laxative in your system for your joints is required. So some kind of, these fats are called laxative for your joints. If you do not have enough fats from these healthy fats like olive oil or raw butter, then you will start having squeaky joints. Then you will start losing hair. Your skin will start showing signs because it's the suppleness of these oils that keep you growing. It's like a machinery. Don't you have to oil the machinery? So this is kind of the oil for us, not necessarily anything anything which is not used with measures is always going to be adverse, right? Everything has a balance in life, Patty. So when there is balance, then everything works in our favor.
Okay.
And it is helpful for us, in other words.
Like when the trend was for fat-free, and that was not good for us.
That fat-free has so many artificial chemicals in that because when they extract the fats out of milk, say for example, right? So they are using fillers in order to make it palatable.
Right. And then speaking of artificial, how about, I know this is a big one for everybody, like the sucralose and the artificial sweeteners. What do you think about those?
Artificial sweeteners are disaster, especially for your nervous system. Artificial sweeteners are completely disaster for your nervous system. Why? Because our neurotransmitters really get shocks instead of flowing with grace and ease from one neuron to the other. Artificial sweeteners has so many chemicals because they are all artificially produced. They really shock your nervous system. They really shock your metabolic process, and a lot of metabolic disorder is created. That is one of the reasons, like people who have every morning, like they have coffee, and when they are adding instead of sugar or honey or maple syrup or any healthy like agave or even jaggery for that matter, most of the Eastern countries, even in India where I come from, we use jaggery and jaggery powder. But these are natural sweeteners. So instead of using any of the natural sweeteners, when people are using the packed artificial sweeteners, they do not know how much toxin they are putting in their body every day. It affects your joints. It affects your nervous system. It affects your brain power. It affects your cognition power. It has a lot of side effects, Patty.
Yeah, and it makes you hungry. I mean, that's like counter effective, and
because the sugar spikes and drops suddenly, right? There is no sustenance for your nervous system, digestive system to hold it or go far.
Okay. And they add it in even children's vitamins. I've seen it. And you don't
everything. The gummy bears. Why do you think children get so much of cavities?
Wow.
Because they suck on the gummy bears, so they get stuck in their teeth. And then they have to either go for root canal, or now not as much like before, but there used to be mercury amalgams, which again used to be adding mercury to your teeth. First, they took out the fluoride, which would really awaken your pineal gland and third eye. And then they add the mercury amalgams.
Yes.
So basically, everything was against humanity, in other words. And what is sugar? Sugar is the most primary taste every child has. when the child is born and lactates and goes to mother's breast, the first chlorostom it's called?
Cholesterol, yeah.
Cholesterol, yeah. So I have my Indian accent, right? So first cholesterol, and that has sweet taste. That's the first taste what the child tastes. So that's the reason why everybody feels sometime or the other craving for sugar, because that's the first sign of nurturing for every human who takes birth.
I never knew that. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah, and it doesn't have any artificial sweetener or artificial sugar in that. It is just straight from mama's body, right? So it's the purest form, and that is what really builds the immune system of the child.
Okay. Huh. Yeah, before the mother's milk comes in, that's what they get for several days.
Right. Once that has started, that is one of the reasons the child starts sucking, and that is the sign when the child is suckling. At that time, the child feels nourished, nurtured, taken care of, and the sweetness is in the mouth.
Okay.
So most of the young adults who come with smoking disorder, or they have issues with anything with their mouth or their lips, that is because they have been having disconnection with the mother. That is a sign of lack of nurturing. So they are actually seeking, people who are chain smokers, used to be or now or whatever, they have issues because they have discord with their nurturing and nourishment received from mother.
Wow.
Because it's a process of the lips, right, and the tongue. When you are when you're nursing and the mother's lactating, that is the connection between the mother and the child. And if that has been out of alignment, maybe the mother could not give the milk, her own milk, and maybe the child was on the supplement, or whatever the reason could be. If there was any kind of misalignment over there are more chances that the child will be a smoker when the child grows up.
Right.
Or will have a lot of craving for food, which is taking care of his inner desire to be nourished and nurtured. So either obese, or it could be possibility, not everybody, but the percentage of having those chances are much higher.
Wow. So that's something to look into emotionally and mentally heal.
Not only that, Patty, like sugar is the prime necessary. What they have done is and what does sugar really do to your body? Sugar also works as a healer. Sugar is sweet, right? So sugar also works as healer if you are having the healthier part of it. As we just spoke before, like you have maple syrup, you have honey, you have agave, you have
Sugar, okay.
cane
Sugar.
not really, because it's anyway processed.
Okay.
So the cane sugar is the byproduct. You can use molasses, but
Okay.
how molasses is solidified, right? So it becomes granulated. Then you have beet sugar, you have date sugar, you have all these different natural resources for sugar. If you use that, it is much more easier. Our body is so beautifully designed in sync with earth, water, fire, air, ether. The more the natural produce you feed, the easier in sync with your and in harmony with your environment you will be.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. While we're on the topic of food and what we're eating, what do you feel about wheats and grains and breads?
Now that is the most genetically modified situation with our produces, I would say. Yeah. Why? Because as we spoke about wheat briefly, right? It came from another universe altogether. Similarly, whatever has been found on earth and we have grown, when it goes from one civilization to the other and the other and the other, those civilizations have altered the way how it is cultivated. And now we are at that stage that it is the highest level of genetically modified organisms what we have.
My goodness.
Even as we spoke about meat, why do you think Temple Grandin has such a big exposure in the fields of how do we cultivate our kettles? Is because she understood the entire equation of how the kettles behave, how the kettles get traumatized when you put them into for their butcher shop, right? So when they are killed, in the way amount of meat produced and consumed all over the world is enormously high. So the way how the animal is killed, the way whatever the animal is fed, the way how the animal is killed, that all affects our physiology and mind, body, spirit. So sometimes you feel people who are eating, their mindset is different, their physiology is different, their physical body is different, their thought processes are different. Why? Because they are integrating the trauma what the animals go through.
Okay.
Right? That's why Amish people, whatever they consume, they are very careful about it, the way how their entire community is producing and consuming, whether it is vegetarian produce or whether it is meat.
Okay. So we have to be careful about our food sources, but yeah. So do you recommend a vegetarian diet? I guess it just depends on preference.
It depends on preference, and it also depends on where you're getting your produce from. It also depends, like most of us who I know, we all are vegetarian or vegan, more or less. But mainly it will come from also where you're getting your produce from. Local farmers. There are people who could be producing more holistically, whether it's farms or whether it's animal farms or producing fruits and vegetables, you know. So be more heartful. That will help.
Okay. All right. And then we talked about the seed oils and the cleanses. Now, a lot of us are on supplements. We try to, because we can't get them enough, or we feel like we're not getting the nutrients from the soil and the what we're eating. So, but who knows how much we're if we're taking the right supplements and what our body's lacking. And what advice do you have about supplementing your diet? Like as they're making these changes where we're going to be able to access healthier foods as they take the contaminants out. But what is your advice or your impression of supplements?
Unfortunately, we have been subjugated to depend on supplements. That is because our food has been manipulated, right? If our food was not manipulated, then we would not have to depend on supplements so much, right? We could navigate through whatever is required because our body always knows what to eat. Our body always craves for it. There would be days when you would be craving orange color food. That is when you are craving potassium, when you're craving papaya, when you're craving sweet potato or carrots. So that is the time when your body is craving that kind of nutrients, which comes from that kind of fruit produce or vegetable produce. Your body always knows. And as we have been pushed into the place of depending on supplements, I know some people, they only take supplements in order to survive. And I'm like, how do you live like this? Because of the trend of being normal, the wrong values of our physiology, which have been induced also. It's an entirely rigged system, Patti. Entirely rigged system. First, they broke down our confidence and our alignment with our own self, our mind, body, spirit, then induced a lot of lack mindset programs into us so that people will say, no, we have to look only certain ways. Like Hollywood did a lot of devastation to the young girls and boys of our generations and generations together. Why? Because there was all falsely created barometers or measures that you must look so and so. And that created the mindset of our young children and growing into adults also, right? Really? So there is a big generation which has only lived on vitamins like gummy bears or syrups or artificial flavors or anything. The reason why is because that was saving them those extra pounds on them or whatever their other side effects they wanted to ignore about, right? I don't want to be fat. Girls used to get anorexic. Girls used to eat only when they wanted to. They would starve themselves. Why? Because the wrong values were induced into people's brains that if you look in certain ways, then all manipulation, right? So that all is breaking down now as people are recognizing that it is naturally much more advisable to have fruit juices, squeeze fresh fruit juices, use lemons, use ginger, all these herbs at home. And instead of having supplements, you can replace your entire supplement drawers with the superfoods. Okay? Like you can use superfoods like barley, or you can use superfoods like spirulina or Atlantic dulse or Anthony Williams, I think his name is. the nutritionist. His books are enormously explaining about how our body can be taken care of. Not necessarily I agree with everything what he says, but he's done a pretty good job in explaining about a lot of things. So if you would have superfoods like lion's mane or pearl powder or shilajit for that matter, yeah, these are the superfoods which can very easily be replaced by the false supplements what we have been having for decades now. Because they could be using, like, say, for example, you are taking a ginger pill instead of having a ginger sliver, right? So ginger pill has ginger juice in it, concentrated also, not even natural, because otherwise it will decay, it will not have a long shelf life. However, it has a lot of fillers with it. Don't we all know when we see the ads on the TV, this is very good for you, but then these are the side effects.
Right.
So it's a rigged system altogether by World Health Organization or HH or whatever you call it. It's a rigged system. So human are waking up, awakening, and they are breaking this entire pattern. And that's why the introduction of superfoods, which always used to be with us. Herbs are always with us on the earth. We were just diverted our attention in the wrong direction, that all is not good. Old saying, we are old school, I'm a homeschool mom. So an apple a day keeps a doctor away. That was the first proverb I taught my son. And instead of teaching our children that we have so much of produce in our home and in our environment, we were diverted towards all artificial and false realities. So once if we just come back to what we are authentically and pay attention to what we always been. Like, listen to your grandmas, listen to your great grandmas, listen to what they used to do instead of us just running to the store and getting this supplement or that supplement. I'm not against the medical world, certain things are required, okay. But then you see as what is also going hand in hand with it. Are you ready for that? Is it worth it?
I see what you're saying. Another thing that I wanted to ask you about was water, because we drink water all day long, our children do, but I know they have additives to the tap water. And what is your opinion? Like, how can we be assured we're safe when we're drinking water?
Harry, unfortunately, humans have deterred from water so manipulatively by the introduction of different beverages in the food industry and the shelf lives of the markets where we go. Water is the first prime necessity for us and our body to function. One of the first prime necessity. Water is a must. People go for fast, but they have water, don't they? Because we are 78 to 85% water in our body. That is what makes your blood circulation, your eyesight, your hair, your entire physiology works better with hydration. Don't they say you are dehydrated? Don't you feel out of sync when you're dehydrated? Nowadays, first we used to have copper plumbing, right? And our water used to flow through copper pipes. Now that used to bring so much of copper in our body that our minerals were supplemented naturally by just the water running through our taps. Now all that has changed into PVC, plastic, or any artificial material, which is actually detrimental. And some people drink tap water, they open up the tap, and when the water runs through it, you must wait. If you're drinking tap water, you must wait for the water to settle. Because first of all, it's bringing a lot of toxins like chlorine and etc. And wherever your region is, there is a special website where if you put your zip code, you can find out how toxic your water is. It would tell you how your water is. Second thing is, once the water comes in the tap, in your glass from the tap, it has the opposite circulatory motion, which is not in sync with your digestive system. So anytime if anybody is taking water straight from the tap, you must wait for some time for that water to settle. So the chlorine gets out, the toxicity goes out, if at all it can. And the motion of the water helps. That's the reason why structured water is the best water for your body. Structured water is something that is created, which you can create with your own self at home with crystals, moving crystals in certain direction and placing certain crystals around the jar in such a way. Structured water can be, you take the water, you clear it by boiling it and sieving it, and then saving water in copperwares like jars, pots, whatever. Or you can buy distilled water or fresh water, stream water if you're traveling, of course. Yeah, you have to see where you are. So the contamination is not only by food or air. Contamination starts with water. And unfortunately, beverages introduction into the market has ruined the drinking of water, and it has contaminated the supplies of water. Like I just found out today morning or yesterday morning, it says there are aborted fetus cells in certain kind of drinks. Okay, it is called HEK 293. Aborted fetus cells in some kind of drinks. Like some brands also have flavors that excite like your nervous system. They say your brain parts are going to be excited. And actually it's a dopamine enhancer. So it's like a different kind of a drug, a different kind of an alcohol instead of water. And our youth is the first one they get caught up in all this because they are introducing it age appropriate, like how children are targeted for the cereals and young children like what is that called? Tarts, those colored, anything which has red color, yellow color, blue color, yellow, like green color. These all things are not healthy for our children. So these beverages which have been introduced instead of water, it is really very toxin. The best thing is to have water, or you make tea at home, or buy a juicer and freshly squeezed juices at home. Because even the packages of different juices, not necessarily they are without fillers. They have to have shelf life, don't they? So they have to have some kind of preservative.
And I know in the tap water, I've heard that there's medication residues because the water gets recycled from the sewer system. And
exactly.
It has a lot to do with the disruption of hormones. So I've heard.
Absolutely. So that is what we are waking up to, fortunately, that people are getting more and more aware about how much toxins we have been dumping in our body. So the best type of water I would say is main spring water, like from spring water. The better, fresher, the better. If you have to buy a bottled water, if you're traveling and you have to have it, you have no other choice. And then structured water or distilled water, if at all, if nothing is available. No? But it rips you off of the minerals what the water has to supply. Distilled water, what I mean.
Okay. And the other thing, I know you're really good with protocols, and someone's afflicted with kidney stones. So if you have a condition, for instance, kidney stones, how would you resolve that?
Kidney stones has been traditionally, as per Ayurveda, kidney stones have been very easy to remove, very painful to release, that I agree, but it's very easy to remove. Like if you drink barley juice for 2 or 3 days, there is, depending on how far the person who's suffering with kidney stones, depending on their conditions also. But if you have barley juice, if you have lemon water every day, it will melt it and it will be passed by your, right? If you have barley juices, if you have carrot juice, if you have lemon water every morning, if you have different kind of herbs, it will help you to release the toxins from your kidney. One of the major celery seeds helps to detoxify your kidneys the highest.
Is there what other ailments are common? What about if a child has a cold or is having trouble with the immune system? Is there something that you would recommend?
I would recommend one must always have ginger in the house 24/7. Once you have ginger in the house 24/7, it will help you to have a better, immune system. And it will help you not having any kind of toxins in your body.
So that could help with allergies?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because what ginger does is ginger roots, ginger juice, and ginger threads, the fabric, means the fibers. The ginger cleanses all the toxins from your intestines, from your gut, from your liver, and it is the highest antioxidant. So if you have ginger on the daily basis, if you have ajwain seeds, that's oregano seeds, on the daily basis, it cleanses your digestive system in such a way that the child will not fall sick.
Wow. And that's even, I know a lot of kids have to get tubes in their ears. There's a lot of...
None of that. None of that. Like if if your child has any kind of ear infection, then you squeeze out, like you crush fresh mint leaves in a pestle and mortar, and then take just a couple of drops of that and drop it in the ears of the child, especially when the child is baby. I teach that in my workshop when I talk about the newborn starseeds, and it works wonders with them.
Wow.
It works wonders with them. Why? Because the newborn, they could be having infection for whatever reason, if at all, right? Sometimes they are still born, they're just fresh, like just come out of the womb, and they have, of course, all the cleansing have been done. If they get any kind of, unfortunately, any kind of infection, this works wonders.
No, that's great.
Yeah. And ginger drops in the back of the throat. It not for the newborn, of course, right? But little children who get cough or who get congested, if you use ginger drops in the back of your throats, freshly squeezed ginger, or even a ginger tea, you steep it for 10 minutes, the fresh grated or sliced, and then add with a spoon of honey. That will help you to clear most of the mucus.
That's wonderful. I know we could spend a whole show just on.
Yes, just talk about the herbs.
I have one more to ask about because I know it's afflicting a lot of kids and adults, like skin issues. Are they? I've heard that can be parasitic or overgrowth of candida.
Yeah, most of the skin issues, Patty, is because of anger. Any kind of skin issues, eruptions on the skin, whether it is fungi, candida, or they call it eczema, right? When that is nothing else but fungus, overgrown fungus. And that of course breeds bacteria, and that goes hand in hand. But that the main reason why that happens is because they have enormous anger. So if you will talk to the child and resolve those situations, why the child is angry, why the child is suppressing his or her emotions, then it will help to remove the skin issues. And along with that, you can make a salve. Like you can take a little bit of tea tree oil or sweet peppermint oil, and sweet or peppermint oil. You can take a little bit of Vaseline, add those drops into it, and apply it on wherever the affected area, and it will clear up in the due course, depending on how severe it is. But it helps.
Yeah, that sounds great. And what do you think about, we've covered so much about the future of our food, and it seems like there's a more optimistic turn, but I think individually we have to understand, accept, awaken. So what do you foresee that's going to happen in the near future or prolonged future? Or what are your hopes?
How I see it is people are waking up so beautifully now, and they are consciously selecting healthier options. So that's a very beautiful thing to see, whether it is in the United States or out of it. People are waking up, Patty. People are becoming more health conscious because they've started seeing across the tunnel that, see, that is how we have come this far. It's not helping. Generations have suffered because of so and so diseases. We have been conditioned. And we took it as a second nature that it's okay to fall sick. It's okay to be like that. And people have started taking their power back. People have started waking up into their own true authenticity of recognizing that I respect my body. I respect what I eat, and I want to take care of my body. So I have a lot of people who are coming up with options of, oh, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to change my diet. And people with a lot of health issues have started changing their diet. So I think it's a very good future for humanity. Slowly and gradually, all the food which is not healthy for our mind, body, spirit is going to be eradicated. And it's always a process, right? Like a revolution starts, and then there is a process how people start catching up slowly and gradually. Like if you are taking care of your health, your people will need to say, oh, what are you doing? Like, I want to do the same. And then you will share, then so on. The chain reaction goes from place to place.
Yeah. And I think you feel better when you're eating healthier and cleaner. So it's also the experience.
And not only that, it also saves humans from diseases like cancer. Yeah. They recognize, because cancer is nothing else. We all have cancerous cells in but they are dormant, right? But they get activated because of the mind, body, spirit together. And then the food habit is one of the major factor in that. So once they see that it has happened with our immediate inner circle, whether friends, family, or anybody, then we start deciding that is not what we want to do, and we start working in the area of how to move forward in that.
That's wonderful that people are awakening. And
Breaking up.
I have the tendency to get a little overwhelmed. I've been studying this for years, so I know it's something to not really beat yourself up about, or kind of take it slowly. Is that what you would recommend? Just not to get overwhelmed, just educate and do what you can.
Check with your body. Your body always knows. After eating something, if you're not feeling the best, that's a big sign your body is saying, don't use this again.
Right.
That doesn't mean you have to be, as you said, like, don't go overboard and say, like, oh, I'm never going to do this. And that's why start slowly. Okay. When you're just beginning, one cheat day is okay. All right. And that one cheat day will show you messed up. Don't do it again. And it will be a process and it will not happen again. Get slowly and gradually.
Yeah. And we've covered so much. Is there anything that you wanted to add to everyone looking into?
When it comes to self-respect and self-love, food is one of the major components. Just like how you live, how you dress, how you beautify yourself externally, take care of your inside first, and it will glow on your face and your body.
You are what you eat.
You are what you eat.
Well, this is amazing. This was so much wonderful information, something to save and look back on. And your website has a lot of information too, reshmashah.com.
Yes.
I think that's something that is, and people can reach out to you. But thank you. I love this conversation, and I really, I look forward to talking with you more.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. Yeah. Okay.